Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Flo. I'm a certified personal trainer, and today we're talking about how to calculate your macros, especially for fat loss. This is going to be a full step-by-step guide, so get ready to take some notes and perhaps do the calculation for yourself as we go. This is one of the most asked, if not the most asked questions I get in my DMs every single day on Instagram. How much do I eat? Do I have to eat just like you? How much do you how do you calculate how much you're supposed to eat? If I eat this many calories, will I lose weight? How much calories? You get the idea. You know, how much protein, carbs, fat, all that. So today, I'm gathering all of these questions and adding them to this guide so you will know exactly how much to eat and, how to calculate your macros for fat loss. First off, let me say that everyone's approach is going to be slightly different. Like every coach's approach is going to be different. And for yourself, it's going to be based on your past experiences, your goals, your allergies, your intolerance, the food you like, the food you dislike. So you have to take all of that into consideration, right? But I still wanted to give you a simple guide, the basics basically of calculating your macros. I have an entire video dedicated on counting. I don't think I went into how much to eat, but definitely talked about how to count macros. So if you do that, this is the simplest one that you can get. Okay, this is the simplest thing you can do to actually get results. This is the 80% work that will get you, it's the work that will get you 80%, if not more, of the results. So you definitely want to do that. It's a learning curve. It can be a little bit tough at first to not calculate it, but track it. But once it's done, it's smooth sailing into your goals. And anyway, it's not meant to do for life. So that's a little sacrifice and a little bit of work that can be done now to get to your goals. So if you decide it's worth it and you want to do that, then stick to here. I don't know what's the English for that, but we'll talk about it. So I'm going to assume that most people on here are watching because they are trying to lose weight. So I will take this as my basics for examples that I'm going to give. And if you're someone who actually wants to lose 20 plus pounds within the next 90 days without starving yourself, spending hours doing cardio, spending hours cooking, saying goodbye to your favorite food, and of course, without gaining the weight back right after, highly suggest you check out the training that I'm going to link somewhere here. It's an in-depth training on how to do that, on how I did it and how I'm doing it with clients. So highly suggest you actually pause this video, watch the training, and if you need, come back here. So you only have 3 macros. You've got, in order of importance, protein, fat, carbs. And that's something I tell all my clients when we start working together. Order of importance when you're trying to lose fat. First the deficit, then the protein, and then if you have some time, some energy, and mental space, and you've been fairly good at actually reaching your deficit and your protein goals, then you can focus on the rest. Then you can try to work on the rest, right? But the best results you'll get is if you have deficit and protein in place and, you stick with it for a while. Okay, so now that this is out of the way, let's talk about how much of a deficit. The sweet spot, if you want to lose weight, obviously being in a deficit, that's requirement number 1. But if you want to lose weight and fat, you want to be at a 10 to 15% deficit. Mostly 15, to be honest. It's fairly manageable. I don't feel hungry on a 15% deficit. And if I do, I'll go to 10, okay? So that's the sweet spot because it maximizes fat loss, minimizes cravings, the likelihood of a binge, feeling miserable on the journey, losing your energy, your patience, your hair, your periods, all of that. We don't want that. So obviously we are trying to minimize for that and actually feel good on the journey. So 10 to 15%, okay? Now, how do you calculate that? You want to go on any calorie calculator online. I really like the NASM bodyweight planner, but you pick the one that you're comfortable with, that maybe you've been using before, whatever works, okay? Then you enter your gender, height, weight, age, and then level of activity. And this is going to give you a rough number, okay? So what I did for myself is I actually took the average of lightly active and moderately active, and that gave me, where am I, 2200. And that's fairly, I could see that as being my maintenance. Maybe slightly higher, but it's fairly good. So it is going to be a good indication as to what your maintenance is. So, how much calories you burn every day, whether you are working out, eating, sleeping, and just living, right? So breathing and so on. However, your body is not a machine. So what that means is that it's not 100% accurate. I know that my body doesn't, even on a good workout day, it's not going to stop at 2370. Okay, it can be a bit higher, can be a bit lower. It just depends. It's just a good indication to have that number in mind, but it's not, set in stone. Carved in stone, is that the word? I don't know. So yeah, you've got that number, and that's like from there you go on your phone's calculator and you enter that number minus 15%, and there you go, you have your deficit. You can do minus 10% and then minus 15. That is just going to give you, a range for you to eat within to be in a deficit. So my deficit is 1850, 1900, 1950 maybe if I really feel hungry on those days, but usually I'm at around 1850, 1870. That's all good. Maximizes fat loss, and I'm in no rush. I know I will lose the weight if I'm there, and I know I will have energy to show up and do the work for my clients and do the work for myself and do the workouts and so on. So there is no point in going too fast, right? So once you have that and you keep working with that for a few weeks, note that it will have to be adjusted every so often, because as you lose fat, it is normal as your weight drops that your maintenance is also going to drop. It makes sense. Your metabolism will go down because if you're less heavy, your body will have less work to carry you throughout the day, to do the workouts, and to basically keep you living, right? So it is normal for your metabolism to go slightly down. And I highly recommend for you to actually play with that, both in terms of weight and then maybe of age and then level of activity. I'd recommend you play to get a bit play around with the numbers to see actually what number comes off. Then you'll see that the less you weigh, the lower it's going to be here and then here. And then the more, the older you get, it's going to slightly also impact your metabolism. And then obviously the more active you are, the more calories you're going to be burning throughout the day. So yeah, I really suggest, if you want to get a good understanding of what works and what actually really impacts your metabolism, play with that. And so I don't weigh myself, but for my clients, I tend to recalculate it every 3 to 4 weeks, depending on their overall fat loss. So if they're not losing, if they're stagnating, maybe we overestimated their maintenance, which can make sense at first because some of them come from a toxic culture, diet culture thing, and have been on 1200 calories for a while, so they have harmed their metabolism and they don't know what to do to lose the weight. And obviously we're not going lower than that, and you have to do that body recomp and that reverse diet thing. But it really depends. I know my metabolism is quite high because I've been bulking as the 72 kg states. I've been bulking, and therefore I have built some muscle mass, and that's what burns a lot of calories. So if I was, the body fat percentage also plays a role. So if you would be if you're skinny fat, maybe your maintenance would be slightly lower than that for same weight, and you would kind of have to figure that out. As I said, it's not a perfect science. Your body is not exactly following this number that another website gave, okay? So you want to basically, adjust as you are losing and not losing and stagnating and losing too fast, too slow, and so on. So I use, actually funny, well, not funny story, but one of my friend, he was on the cut in November, I think, October, November of last year, and he had an online coach, just like I am, and he doesn't speak English. So that, anyways, point being, he actually was in a deficit, and he doesn't have, his coach doesn't do weekly check-ins like I do, but maybe by monthly check-ins. And so he was on this very crazy deficit, and he lost a ton of weight in the first month, and also a lot of muscle mass, which he wasn't supposed to and didn't want to. And then on the monthly check-in, the coach was like, oh shit, you've been in too much of a deficit, and we didn't really account for the lean body mass that you have and so on. So that's why I'm saying it's really important to recalculate it every so often, or have someone who will actually guide you through that, and to take into account that maybe you have a little bit more body fat. So if you do have more body fat, maybe you need to be in slightly less of a maintenance, because fat doesn't burn calories, obviously muscle too, right? So yeah, that was a big story just to tell you, keep adjusting. Don't be scared of adjusting. It's normal, and it's not a perfect science here. So I use MyFitnessPal to track my deficit, but you can use whatever works. I know some people use, I think it's called Lose It. We must have another one. Hold on. It's called LiveSum? I think LiveSum. But yeah, you have other calories like counter apps out there. Just like use whatever you want. Now let's talk about protein and actually calculating your macros. We're going to start with protein, as I just said. It's really helpful because it's going to keep you fuller for longer, but it also maintains your lean body mass. And I've just went on a tangent to explain to you why it's important to keep that. So, while you're in a deficit, if you eat enough protein, you're not going to lose as much muscle, and therefore end up lean and toned instead of skinny fat. It's really important, especially for that. And, when you are at maintenance, you are less likely to lose muscle mass, except for the aging and if you don't work out. But point being, if you do work out and you are at maintenance, you don't need that much protein, because if you're not in deficit, your body's not going to try to eat the muscle for energy and for the food that you're not getting by being in a deficit. I hope that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense in my head, but hopefully you get the point. You have to have a high protein intake, especially in a deficit. That's my whole point. Now, how much protein? I always start my clients at 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So I know a lot of you out there are speaking in pounds. I don't. So just try to convert that and you'll be good to go. And then as they go, we increase it to 1.8 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. I really suggest that that was a very much, yeah, anyways. So that was a better way of explaining what I've told you, right? But the point is, if you do go from, let's say, 50 grams of protein to 100 per day, I highly suggest you don't do that, because you're gonna, be bloated. It's gonna be a bit more painful because your body needs a bit more, to work a little bit harder to actually break down the protein and digest the protein. So you may have other digestive issues if you increase too quickly. So you really don't want to do that. I highly suggest you go 60 grams and then 70 and so on. And don't worry, it's not going to, prevent you from losing weight. It's good to keep on adding protein, but don't go from 0 to 100. That's going to be really painful and not comfortable, at least. In terms of the sources, you obviously have whey, which is great and convenient, and it's easy to just pop in a smoothie or in a yogurt or just drink as such. If you're struggling to get your protein in, whey protein is really good. It has especially the low in sugar, and it's a good protein to calorie ratio, so it's protein dense, as opposed to, let's say, peanut butter, which is said to be high in protein, but to be honest, you would need to eat a lot of calories of peanut butter to get to that same calorie, protein intake as whey, if that makes sense. I have a whole post on Instagram about that, so you can check that out. But yeah, basically, peanut butter, not really high in protein. High in calories. Sure, it has some protein, but not very calorie dense. Protein dense. Okay. I know that some of you are going to ask me what type of, what brands I recommend. And my favorite one is Body and Fit. I think I've talked about it before. It's a really good brand. And in terms of protein bars, I really recommend Joy Fuel for for the people who are in Europe. I think you can find them. I find them in France, then I don't know in other countries. And Barbells are the other one that you can find pretty much everywhere. And white chocolate or cookies and cream are really good. Now, obviously, you've got animal protein, lean meat, beef, fish, and then you've got eggs, but it's not that big of, it's considered high in protein, but you would need to eat a solid 10 egg if you wanted to get 80 grams of protein. So I don't know if that's something you feel like doing every day. So it's, yeah, sure, protein, but not high in protein. Same for dairies. It's, depending on the dairy you go for, lots of calories because fat as well. So you definitely want to take that into consideration. I really like tuna and lean meat. Actually now I do get tired of chicken. So recently I've been eating a lot of tuna and beef. Now, I know that some of you are going to be like, when is it best to eat the protein? And my answer is whenever it's convenient. And ideally throughout the day, because you've got benefits to eating some before you go to bed, before workout, after workout, when you wake up, it's for breakfast, it's good to spread it throughout the day, and it's less difficult as well because, if you try to focus on, okay, I need 20% of my protein intake to be like breakfast and then 80, then I'm saying random numbers. I have no idea what other people say. And again, that means that some coach may say otherwise. Really suggest you just spread your protein evenly throughout the day. I like to start my day with a 40-gram of protein breakfast. It really sets me off, gets the ball rolling. Highly suggest. I think I shared it a lot on my Instagram stories. So anyways, you can just check my stories and you will see the recipes like come up every so often, like every other day maybe. So you've got that. Now, let's talk about fat. It also helps you stay full, but it's great for hormone production. It basically keeps you healthy. So that's why you cannot stop eating fat. It's good for you. And it also helps you not have that big of a blood sugar spike. Now, I didn't go into like a whole tangent on here, but I can speak it. So when you eat, it's normal for your blood sugar to go up a little bit because like you've eaten, right? So you had more sugar, glucose coming through, especially with the carbs that we're going to mention in a second. And fats don't have that big of a spike. And the good thing about not having too big of a spike is less sugar craving, less crash that you may feel, mid-afternoon or mid-morning because you've had like sugary cereals, for example. So it's really good to have fat in your diet, especially for that. It will keep you fuller, as I said, and also prevents you from like that energy crash and just keep your energy level stable. The target that I go for is 1 gram per kilo of body weight. And this one, even if you were like 1.8 grams per kilo of body weight or 0.1, it doesn't matter if you go all the way up to like 1 gram. It doesn't matter. You can pretty much like change that from one day to the other. But I really want you to understand that we need fat to live, okay? I do get the whole idea of like actually mentioning it here. It's more calorie dense, it's for 1 gram of fat, you get 9 calories. Yeah, and for protein and carbs, you get 4 calories. So it makes sense that it's the easiest to cut out when you're on a deficit, but you still want to reach that 1 gram per kilo of body weight. It's so much, it's good for your health. So you really want to do that, and it keeps you full for hormone production. You don't want to mess up with that when you're trying to lose weight or any time otherwise. But this is really important to have that in mind, that yes, it's the easiest to cut out, but you still need some. And the way I do it, I make sure I get my intake in without being way overboard in terms of calories, is I weigh my food. Okay, especially peanut butter, especially oil, butter, all of that, avocados, nuts, seeds, all of that, good whole food healthy fat, but don't want to go overboard with the calories. So it's better to just weigh and track it appropriately so you are still in a deficit. And last, we have carbs. Great for energy, but also creates a high blood sugar spike. Carbs it makes sense, okay? It's not like carbs are evil or whatnot. You need carb, but it creates a big blood sugar spike. Now, all carbs are not created equal, meaning that oats versus sugary cereals will not be dealt with in the same way by the body, okay? So oats have fiber, which prevents or at least lessen the sugar spike. And, they are slow digesting. So it's very different from the sugary cereals, which don't have fibers and go phew in terms of blood sugar spike. And in terms of quantity, I really see it as the rest of your intake. I know a little bit lower here. I'll explain that a bit more. I actually have the screenshot to tell you how it's going to work, but it's just the rest of your intake. You've got the protein that is important, then the fat, and then last you've got the carbs. And I don't really calculate it. I know some people do, depending on workout day, not workout day. If you're on a sleep, maybe you want to actually calculate that. But if you're trying to lose weight, you don't really need to do that. You don't need to worry about it. So yeah, you first enter your calories in MyFitnessPal, then your protein, then your fat, and what's left is going to be the carbs. Now, I wanted to quickly talk about the low carb diet and explain to you why you lose a ton of weight when you go on that, only to gain it back right after and when you start eating carbs again. Carbs retain water. Take, for example, when you make French toast, when you soak the toast or brioche or whatever in the egg mixture, it gets heavier and soaks in the egg, right? It's not a bad thing. Your body needs water. Your body needed a way to find a way to have some in reserve. Carbs worked perfect, okay? So when you stop eating carbs, all of a sudden your body doesn't have that big of a reserve to stock the water intake, right? So that's why you will lose a ton of weight, because you're losing water, not fat. And that's also why when you start again eating carbs, the water weight comes back immediately. But you were not like losing fat in the first place. So that makes all sense. And that's why I really don't recommend like low carb diet. I am saying that if you were to reduce a macro, I would tend to go carbs first and then, fat, never the protein. But I'm not pro low carb diet. Just whatever works for you. Some people really feel better with that, gluten intolerance and so on. Some people don't, and it really depending on people. As long as you are in a deficit and reach your protein intake, I don't really mind. Now, let's put it all together. As I said, I use my fitness pal, and basically what you do is first you enter your calories, and then you are going to be able to slide up and down the protein intake and then the fat, and that basically you will have the carbs to adjust accordingly to get to 100%, and then you're good to go. Don't bother if you eat too much carbs or too much fat, or too little carbs and too little fat. Like, mostly protein and calories, that's the most important thing. That's really what you have to keep in mind and be consistent with that. And then the rest is going to follow, like the weight is going to go off and you'll still feel good and so on. Now, quick recap here: 10 to 15% deficit, 1.2 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, 1 gram of fat per kilo of body weight, and the rest of your calories intake is going to be carbs. Now, some last word. This was a basic overview spoken very quickly, but I'm hoping that it will help you get in the right direction. Now, if you want a clear step-by-step on how to lose the weight, I have 2 in-depth case studies for you to pick from. The first one is from my own journey from overweight to lean and tone, and then one from about my clients, one of my clients rather, from skinny fat to lean and tone. So whatever applies best to your case, highly suggest you check that out. I will link them in the description, and that will definitely help you be get on the right track. And of course, if you're interested in hopping in the program, hopping sounds better. Anyway, if you're interested in hopping in the program and be coached by me, I can save you a ton of time, a ton of energy. And I've been helping people get in shape for a while now. That's something that comes easy to me, that comes really naturally. And, I've done it myself. I'm doing it for clients. So why not you? You have in the description a link to book a call with me to see whether or not we'd be a good fit and, if I can help you. And if I can, let's just get started, right? And that was pretty much it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you appreciate, you liked it, lots of values, hope you took notes. And, make sure to comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.